What we have here is the carpet under the jeweler's workbench up here. And what we're gonna do is he's allowed me to take this, and what we'll do is we'll take it over to the shop. Carpet here in this plastic bag. Here's the stuff that we swept up off the floor. So now let's get a weight on this just to get some kind of bearing on what kind of yield we can expect. We've got 366.4 grams of material in this bag, including the bag. We're going to throw this back into our bag with our carpet here. Now we're going to take this out and burn it. Here we go. All right, here we go. We're going to turn some gas on for our turkey fryer here. I've got just a big old soup pot. I'm going to set that on the fire now. And I'm going to add the bag of carpet and sweeps right in this bucket. And we're going to burn everything. All right, the goal here is to burn everything to a fine ash. And then we'll go to the next step. All right, we've been out here for about 15 minutes burning this material. And I can see down in there we still got quite a bit of combustible material that needs to be burnt off. And what we're going to do is burn this until we see no more flames and no more smoke. All right, we had this on for about a half an hour now. I think everything's pretty much burnt to a fine ash. And that's what we need here. I don't see any more smoke, no more flames. So what we're going to do is turn off the fire now. And let this cool down. Here's our burnt material. The carpet is all burnt up. All the combustible stuff is out of there. It's cooled down. Now what we're going to do is transfer it into a melt dish here and just see exactly what it is we have. Here's our burnt material. I'm going to go through here with a magnet in a plastic bag, and we're going to start pulling out the magnetic stuff, transferring it over here. Alright, I've been at this about 15 minutes, and I've got most of the big pieces out of here. I don't see any more big hunks of steel, tools, saw blades, things like that. So I pretty much got all that out of here now. And what we have over here is all of those pieces of scrap steel. And what I'm going to have to do is go through this all now and hand separate these pieces of steel from the rest of the powder, because there's going to be gold in this powder. Alright, here we go. We're going to start spooning some of the burnt material here. This ash, it's going to be loaded with gold. And we're going to start spooning it into this strainer. And we're going to strain it through this fine mesh screen and create a finely divided powder to extract the metals from this. Okay, this is the end of all the material that I had in here. It's all been sifted through our strainer, and I've been storing it up in this dish right here. This is stuff that wouldn't go through the screen. What I'll do is put this over here now. And if you look, down in here is the material that we have, the powdered material. It's a mountain of it. So now what we'll do is we're going to set this in the back out of the way here. And I'm going to bring the mortar and pestle up here. And we'll start spooning this stuff in now into here. And we'll grind it up real good in here. And then I'll send this stuff back through the screen back here. Alright, here we go. Alright, here you go. If you look at this stuff in here, there's some solid pieces of gold in here. But what we're doing right now is trying to get it all into a finely divided state. So I'm going to bring this back up now that we've ground this material up. I'm going to stick it back through the strainer again. We should get some more of it to go down into our beaker. Alright, these are going to have to be ground some more, so I'm just going to stick them over here now. And what we'll do is continue working on all these pieces over here till we've got all of this through the mortar and pestle and back through the screen. All right, we got all the stuff out of here into our mortar and pestle, through our screen back here, into a finely divided powder down in our beaker. Now what we're going to do, this is the last load from that. We're going to get these little pieces here swept down and into the grinder. All right, let's see here. A few pieces jumped out. I'm gonna sweep some of these into here now. Try to get everything. Do the best job we can for the refiner, or I mean for the jeweler. He's a good friend of mine, and he helps me out a lot by allowing me to work with his material. I'm gonna try to do the best job we can for him. Sorry about that. I've got most of the material forced through our metal screen in a finely divided state down inside this beaker. And so now all we have left to do is we're going to take this material in and sort through it by hand. This material is going to have pieces of steel, which we don't want to include when we go to start extracting the precious metals. And I'm just going to go through and pick all this stuff out by hand. Here's a tool made out of steel, and I just don't want this stuff included in the beaker with the finely divided material. There's also going to be pieces of gold in here, silver. What I'll do is I'll put these pieces of precious metals that I find into a separate container over here, and I'm just going to go through now and sort everything out, get it all classified. All right, that took about 20 minutes or so, and I've got most of the big hunks of junk out of here. And what we're looking at doing here is splitting all this up so we can exclude it when we go to the acids. And if you look down here at my junk pile, it's mostly going to be pieces of steel saw blades, old watch batteries, tools, staples, and just junk that we don't want to include. In here, however, we have some pieces of gold and silver that we do want to include in the batch. Now we'll take this back out and try to push this through our mesh strainer. We're going to spoon some of this down into our screen here. See if we can get some more of it ground up and down inside of our beaker. Now that we got the big hunks of steel out of there, this should go pretty quickly. Still some pieces of steel in here we can take out. Watch batteries. Just go through and pick out all the stuff that we don't want going down into the beaker, because if we allow this steel stuff in there, the nitric will partially dissolve it, but it'll make for a real dirty solution. So we want to go ahead and just spend some time and get all these pieces of non-gold stuff taken out of here before we proceed. See, like this. That's a piece of stock that the jeweler uses, either gold or silver. So I'll put that in my keeper dish over here. Alright, we're almost ready to start processing this stuff with some acid. We're going to go in and sort through this by hand one more time. Alright, let's go back into the shop there and sort through this. Alright, the boss, the jeweler, has already told me that he expects 10 grand from this scrap. 10 grand. And I looked at him and I said, that is precisely why I don't refine other people's material. I only refine my own material. That way, if the yield is off, the only person I had to blame is myself. The only guy I got to deal with is me. But if I got somebody else's stuff in my shop and I'm refining it for them, essentially the amount of gold is indeterminate. You can't determine what it's worth in the state that it's in. And so expectations are high. But if that yield is not up to what the customer is expecting, then it's like, you're the last one to handle my material. You ripped me off. And that's precisely why I don't refine other people's material. Another important point is I've worked down in that jeweler's workshop for about 4 years, and I am familiar with the kind of scrap that he generates, and so I'm able to discriminate here what I'm looking at. So if somebody new is thinking I'm just going to go down to the jeweler and get his scrap and start refining it for him, it gives me an advantage by having worked down into his shop for 4 years and watching him work and knowing what kind of scrap is generated. And now I can determine which pieces here are good and which pieces are junk. And that creates an advantage for me going through and trying to refine his material here. Okay, we're almost there. I've nearly got the sorting process complete. Got a magnet here. I'm going to go through and try to get out all the little bits of magnetic material now that we have in this little bit of stuff in our pan. This is all just base metal junk in here, looks like. So what we'll do, there's a little piece of gold there that got carried over with it. Get him out of there. What we'll do with this now is just add it to the scrap pile here. Alright, I think I'm at the lowest level that I can be. I've got everything ground up just as fine as I can. I've been trying to conserve and collect all of the stuff that's spilled. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and pour this through the strainer one last time. Alright, this is all that's left in our strainer. And I think all these pieces are small enough to be able to dissolve when we go to the chemical process here. So I think I'm going to call it right here. We're just going to add this little bit right into our scrap here. Alright, I've got all of this material classified. Here's our finely divided powder down in this 4-liter beaker. Over here I've got the steel and scrap stuff that we want to exclude. I've got a few gemstones. We'll return those to the jeweler. And then here I've got some carat scrap and some silver in here. We'll process this a little further and throw it in with our finely divided material before we start processing it with acid. Alright, for this next footage, I've installed a filter on my iPhone here. My son-in-law got this stuff for me. Very nice. Fused quartz lenses. They're adjustable. Let me see if I can. And it trims the amount of light that goes into the lens. And so we're going to try this for this next segment. Alright, let's take our carat stuff here. I'm going to put it over here on the melt table. And we're going to melt this up into a button. Here we go. Here's our button that we just melted. This is the scrap. I'm going to put that in a bag and give it back to the jeweler. Here's his stones. We'll give those back to the jeweler. Let's get this out of the way now and concentrate on our powder. This material is going to be just like mud when I add the liquid to it. So it's going to have to be stirred. What I've set up here is I've assembled a stirring apparatus, kind of just pieced it together. I'm using a cordless drill. It's got piece of PVC pipe connected to a airplane propeller. I've got it sitting on a ring stand here that's weighted. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this together and start adding some acid to our powder. All right, let's see if we can pull this off. Put our material in our Corningware container, and then we're going to slide this up. And now we're going to push it in. Now let's see if we can pick this up. Of course we meet some resistance when we hit the powder. I'm going to pull our burner underneath there and slowly push our apparatus back into the fume hood. It's just a clamp that has the cordless drill clamped in it. Piece of PVC pipe, some airplane propellers down in there. I want to try this out before I add any liquid, make sure it's going to work. And I think it's going to be okay. I think this will work. I think we're going to go ahead and get set up to start adding some liquid now. Alright, to turn this thing on, I'm just going to use a zip tie to hold the trigger down a little bit. There we go. Alright, we've got steerage. These batteries are old. I don't know how long they're going to last. I'm going to add some distilled water into the powder now. Right, I'm going to reach down in here with a glass rod, try to get our material wet before we get started putting acid in there. I'm going to add a little bit more water here, distilled water. Alright, this is working out like I had planned, hopefully. I'm going to add a dose of nitric acid here. Start out with about 50 milliliters. And what we're doing here is trying to pull all the silver and other material that's soluble with nitric acid out of this material. Add it real slow, because it's in a finely divided state and it could flare up vigorously if we add too much all at once. There's about 100 milliliters of nitric acid in here, and so what I'll do is I'll pour this in real slow, kick this thing off, add it real slow here. Oh yeah, we get a rise out of the solution down there. I've added about half of it, and that's as far as I want to go because I got no recourse. If that thing decides to boil over, I'm just going to have to sit there and watch it. Okay, my stirring device seems to be working fairly well, and I've got a little bit of adjustment here so I can lower it down into the beaker, lower if I need to. I've got it sitting on a cinder block here with a brick to counterbalance the weight of the electric drill. Seems to be working okay. Alright, I think I'm going to lower the stir down just a little bit here. About a ½ inch. It's contacting the bottom now. It's probably what we want. Should be okay. Alright, we've got about 300 milliliters of nitric acid up here. What I'm going to do is start dripping it into the solids in our beaker down here. And we're going to start flowing some more nitric in here. Just a drip at a time. Got a fairly decent drip rate. I'm going to reach down here now and add just a touch of heat, medium-low heat, and let's let this react. I've got my acid drip going. I've got my time-lapse camera set up. So now we're on autopilot. I just wanted to say that this amount of material is right at the max capacity for my small operation here. I probably really should have a larger reaction vessel, but we'll give it our best shot with what we got. I'm going to add about 300 milliliters of distilled water to this beaker. I'm going to add about 75 milliliters of nitric acid. Alright, now we're going to try to pour this right on in. See what kind of reaction we get from this. This has been on stirring and reacting for about 3 hours. Let's see, what are we going to get out of this? Got a little bit of bubbling action going on there. But take it easy with the nitric additions. So that means we still got material in here that's reacting with the nitric acid. Alright, my battery power is 100% gone now. So I'm going to try to take the stirring apparatus down off of here. It worked well. It stirred the material for about 3 hours. Burn up both of the batteries, and those batteries are old, so they don't take a charge well anymore. And I'm going to try to put in a little bit more of the nitric acid and water mixture. let's go ahead and try another dose of nitric in water here. The trick is to get the nitric in there as quickly as possible without creating a boil over. So here we go. We're going to add this now. Dilute nitric acid going into our reaction. Yeah, I wish I had a bigger reaction vessel. This is getting too close to the top. I'm going to have to call it here in a little bit because we're running out of room in our beaker here. The time now is 7 p.m. We've been on boiling now since about 1:30. I've added about half a liter of nitric acid to this material. And so what we're going to do now, I'm going to call it right here. We're going to add some distilled water. I'm going to turn the heat off. We're going to add some distilled water and give it a good stir here. And let this settle overnight. And then we'll get our material out of here, and we'll look at refining the gold that we got in our button in part 2 of the series. So this will conclude part 1 of the Jeweler's Carpet recovery and refining video. Thanks for watching.